Chip Kelly may be the savior of Al Davis's Raiders and the Allegiants. He may be the solution to restore the black hole to prominence at Allegiant Stadium. He is being paired with Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham. Those two Raider styles will be discussed in a later video. The focal point of this brief discussion will be on Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly offenses have been known for their fast pace, spread formations, and wide splits to attack defenses horizontally. Chip Kelly uses no huddle to keep defenses off balance. His play calling style incorporates zone read runs and option read runs and passes. Upon research, Kelly briefly gives his take on his offensive thought process in an interview with Joel Klatt. Stay tuned.
I would argue that you were at the forefront of innovation in schematics in football, really at every level, but certainly at the college level. And what you guys were doing at New Hampshire, and then what you brought to Oregon, changed college football. The tempo, the ingenuity in terms of how you practiced, when you practiced, it was all new. And that's all anybody could talk about was what you were doing at Oregon. My first question would be, where did it start? What was the genesis of your kind of schematic foundation to football?
Yeah, I would argue, because I always argue. If you weren't in the room with Amos Alonzo Stagg and Newt Rockne, then you stole your idea from somebody. Because somebody has done what we're doing now.
I knew you would deflect.
In the past. So it's how do you put it together so it fits best for your team?
So you view what you did as more of taking puzzle pieces and fitting them together.
Sure.
Just taking different puzzle pieces. How do I make this puzzle picture work for us?
You look at Tim Tebow and what Urban did with Tim. Unbelievable. Single wing football. They were doing that in the 30s. Notre Dame ran the box back then. You look at some of the stuff we did, it was Dutch Myers and TCU in the 50s. So this has been the cyclical part of the game where we can go back into the history of the game and say, hey, how do we do it? Now, back then, I would say everybody was married to a system.
Sure.
And this is our system, this is what we do. Now I think people are more of, I'll do some of this and then some of this and some of this, because what all great coaches do is, what can we add that's going to help this team this year in this game?
Sure.
Not, we run a system, and if it's not part of the system, then we're not gonna do it. I think everybody has a sprinkling of everything. Everybody runs some power. Everybody runs some RPOs. Everybody runs, but I think the coaches that are the best are the ones that can match it to the personnel that they have.
Yep.
But, you know, I grew up on the East Coast. I was in the old Yankee Conference, and we got to play Delaware every year, and it was a thing of beauty to watch a Tubby Raymond Delaware football team with unbelievable players like Rich Gannon moving up and down the football field, and it was pretty. It was buck sweep to waggle to trap to option to empty to, it was a million different things, but it all fit into their system. And so you can kind of watch and observe how they did it, and then it was just adapt. And really for us, it all came from, we were an I-formation team. We were a young Penn State. Our head coach was a tight end at Penn State under Bill Bose is his name.
Yeah.
Under Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno was his position coach.
Yeah. We
dressed like Penn State. We were Penn State. We were in the eye. We were tough, hard-nosed, and we were physical. And then when we transitioned, as I transitioned to the offensive coordinator, we didn't have any fullbacks.
So it was born out of necessity.
It was born out of necessity. Is our third wideout better than a fullback? He is. Well, then how do you run the ball without, you're going to have the wideout play fullback. So, but if you move him out of the box, maybe a linebacker steps out with him.
Sure.
So by formation, you've moved him, but you're still running similar plays. So it really became from necessity, but it's still understanding the schematics of 11 on 11 and how can you affect people 11 on 11. And then that became the fun part. Like, what can we do with our players to give them a chance to be successful this week?
How about when you look around, I would argue a lot of coaches are unwilling to take those steps. There's a fear factor of like, there's an uncomfortable nature. And yet you were willing to do that. How do we run power with three wide receivers? A lot of coaches would say you can't run power with three wide receivers because you have to have X, Y, and Z, and you've got to have the kick out, and you've got to have a fullback or at least an H-back in there. And your willingness to say, well, why not?
Yeah.
How did that evolve?
Well, I've always said, why not? I don't know if that had anything to do with football, but I think your job as a coach is to create an environment where your players have an opportunity to be successful.
Sure.
And then get out of their way. And then say, we're in the solution business. If you're a really good football coach, you're really good at solving problems. Here's our issue. How do we solve it? Let's move on. And I don't think we're married to what do other people think if we do this. I've always said I'm not governed by the fear of what other people say. So you may like what we do, you may not like what we do. We really don't care. Our job is to try to put our players in the best position we can. And I think maybe that experience for me, because we weren't in the limelight, we were at New Hampshire. So we didn't have a rabid fan base and message boards and all those other things at that point in time. Maybe that would have been different. Maybe I would have been different. I don't know. But our job was to win each week. And that's all we thought about. Like, what are we going to do to win? And that was our overarching goal every week. It's going to take this to win, then let's do it.
Where do you think it's going, schematics? Like, do you sense a trend right now? Because there was a big trend, like everyone had to go fast. And then everyone wanted to go tempo. And there was a few outliers, right? For a while, it was like only Stanford would get in there and just like run it. But now, like, it's hard for me to predict like where it's going because everyone does, like you mentioned earlier, a little bit of everything.
I don't get caught up as much as what is the trend.
Okay.
It's just, is what they're doing can be implemented into what we do. And I'll give you an old Joe Paterno, Penn State, Franny Gantner, and all those guys. If you add, you have to subtract. Because you can't like everything.
Well, and you can't execute everything.
Because you can't execute
right?
everything.
There's not an unlimited
so be like, hey,
amount of
this
time
is good,
to practice.
and then this is good, and then this is good. And I always have thought of, I remember Franny Gantner telling us that, the old longtime Penn State offensive coordinator, to say, that's great. If we're going to add it, let's just look right now at what we have. What are we taking out? And then it makes you really think about what your scheme is. Well, let's take out that. Well, I really kind of like that. Okay, well, then let's take out, I really kind of like that. Well, maybe we're good. Maybe we don't have to add this shiny new object that we saw yesterday that we kind of liked as we start to add it. And I think if you're conscious of knowing how many, and what we're really conscious of, how many reps do we get during a week where I feel comfortable enough, or we feel comfortable enough, that when we run it on Saturdays, we're giving our players an opportunity to be successful running it, instead of, I can't believe they screwed it up because we ran it in a walkthrough on Tuesday. That's on us.
Right.
That's on us. That's bad coaching. When we call something in a game, we feel like our players have executed it to a point where we're going to be successful when we do it, and not because of lack of reps. I think that's one of the advents of